and the walls will ooze green slime. Oh, wait, they always do that.
It's really an iconic line from Graveyard Shift. And as Squidward said, it's nothing new, right? This green slime has always been there from time to time. But what is it? What is the green stuff that is apparently always leaked out of the walls of Bikini Bottom's premier daytime eatery? I mean, really? Because I wanted to know what it is, how did it get here, and more importantly, why does everyone think it's normal? And it turns out the reason why nobody cares is the more interesting question of the two. So hold on to that. We'll come back to it. So if we're talking about green slime in this show, the first name on the list is obvious. It's the one from Fungus Among Us in season 5. One day, SpongeBob finds a contagious sea fungus. He touches it, accidentally spreading green infection across the entire Krusty Krab, and ends up getting isolated in a bubble. Gross. Now, could this fungus be the same green slime that oozes from the Krusty Krab? Well, the chances are pretty slim, because for one, this fungus looks to be more solid than the ones at Graveyard Shift. And second, in this episode, SpongeBob is the one that brought the fungus into the Krusty Krab, not the other way around. Aside from that, nobody knew how to deal with it. I mean, who would? The only thing that knew how to deal with it, though, was Gary, because he's physically eating it off every surface and every infected fish in the town. So if it was the same thing that was normally popping up in the Krusty Krab's walls, the owner itself, Mr. Krabs, or even his longest serving employee, Squidward, would surely know a thing or two about how to take care of it. So that means this ooze would have to be a recurring phenomenon instead of a catastrophic disease. Okay, so if it's not biological, maybe it's coming from the building itself. Maybe it's some kind of leak. I mean, we know that the Krusty Krab is a goldmine of health violations. That's not really a secret. We also know the Krusty Krab sits on top of grease, like in the episode There Will Be Grease. Gives us an entire well of the stuff pooled under the restaurant, enough that crabs and plankton try to bottle it and sell it. And there's a scene, Quarantined Crab, where they show us the plumbing of it directly. There's a grease trap down there, with a pipe leading into the building's underbelly. So the foundation of this place is exactly as filthy as you'd expect. Grease, mold, gunk, all of it sloshing around beneath the floor. And if you want a number on how long it's been festering, Greasy Buffoons hands you one.
Oh, what is it?
That, me boy, is a grease trap.
The grease trap under the Krusty Krab hasn't been emptied in over 50 years, half a century of buildup directly under the dining room. It's a good suspect, but I don't think it's our answer, because if the building were leaking its own greasy underbelly, that mess would be coming up through the floorboards, seeping up between the planks, pooling under the tables, welling up where SpongeBob mops. But our slime doesn't come from below, it comes out of the walls. So as much as I'd love to pin it on the grease, and the grease is real, and it's genuinely vile, the geometry just doesn't work. Also, I can't really come up with an explanation on how grease can turn green. Even if you leave a bunch of grease for 50 years, most of it would just turn a darker and grayish color. So I started to think maybe there's some clue outside the show itself, like anything that could help us narrow our search. And to my surprise, I kinda did. In fact, I get a whole answer for it, because this is probably the most obvious answer, and you've probably been yelling it at the screen. It's a reference to a Nickelodeon kinda joke. I mean, green slime is the Nickelodeon thing. You know, the Kids' Choice Awards where they dump green slime on everyone, and not to mention, the Nickelodeon logo is a shape of splat. So when Squidward said they always do that, he's just winking at the audience, as if to say, of course it leaked a green slime. this is a Nickelodeon show. Duh! And honestly, on the writer's level, that's almost certainly the joke. I'm not going to pretend it isn't. Somebody in the room wrote, "The walls will ooze green slime," and laughed about it, because they knew exactly what green slime means on the network. But that's an answer about why the line exists. It's not an answer about what the slime is. And if that's where we stop, then every weird detail in this show is just, it's a cartoon, and we never get to ask anything. So humor me. Set the Nickelodeon joke on the shelf, tip the hat, acknowledge it, and then ask the better question. If this is a real building sitting in a real ocean, what would actually be oozing out of its walls? And that's when I remembered who made this show. Steve Hillenburg. The reason the clams behave like birds and every other snail meowed like a cat. So when something in this show looks like nonsense, it's worth checking whether it's actually background biology. And wouldn't you know it, the green slime that grows on a wet surface in the light and comes back no matter what you do has a real name. It's a biofilm. More specifically, it's what aquarium people call green film algae, a thin, slippery layer of single-celled green algae that grows across glass, walls, and any hard surface sitting in lit water. It's green, it's slick, and it forms a film that weeps and smears rather than sitting still. The scientists who study this stuff literally reach for the comparison to movie slime, the Ghostbusters ectoplasm, because that is genuinely what it resembles. It's not just one organism either. It's a whole community formed as one. Algae for the color, and the bacteria and the gluey matrix they all live in for the ooze. Which means the reason this ooze has a green color is the algae. The reason it oozes instead of just staining is the matrix, the slick biological gel a colony builds to hold itself onto the surface. Green plus ooze isn't two different theories fighting each other. It's one thing. It's algae living inside its own slime, which is exactly the stuff coming out of Squidward's wall. Now, look at what it needs to grow. They always need three things: water, light, and nutrients. And the Krusty Krab is practically a machine for providing all three. It's underwater, as we all know, so the water is a given. Every surface in the building is a wet surface, all the time. It has those big windows and that lit dining room, so there's your light, pouring in for as many hours as Krabs keeps the place open. And it's a filthy, overfed kitchen that nobody ever properly cleans, which is an endless buffet of the nitrates and phosphates that this stuff feeds on, the exact nutrients that, in the real world, come from overfeeding and skipped cleaning. At this point, if you sat down and tried to design a building to grow green film algae, you could just draw the Krusty Krab. But as cool as a science that marine biology is, that is not the most interesting part in this story, because this biofilm actually explains everything about this show. So let's say that one day Squidward or SpongeBob spotted that ooze again in the middle of their shifts. Oh, tartar sauce, it's that thing again. They could wipe it off easily, because those things don't have roots. But then it would come back within a day, simply because it's that easy to grow when you put it in its preferred environment, such as the Krusty Krab. Reef keepers, yeah, that's an actual job name by the way, often talk about scraping it off their tank glass 2 and 3 times a day for months and watching it return every single time. Because as long as the conditions are there, it regrows faster than you can clean it. You can't beat it. You just keep wiping and accept that tomorrow it's back. That is Squidward's line, word for word, in real life. They always do that. The thing that always comes back. Now, here's the part I like, because it flips a thing you'd assume. On land, when a building grows gunk in its walls, most likely it's mold. And mold likes the dark. Damp basements, such as the backs of cupboards, behind the drywall, the places light never reaches. Meanwhile, underwater, like Bikini Bottom is, it's kind of the opposite. The slime needs light. Light is the engine. No light, no algae, no green. So the very thing that would protect a building on land from mold, the big bright windows and the sunlit dining room, is the exact thing feeding the rot in Bikini Bottom. The Krusty Krab's glass walls are the very reason it's slimed. And the more covered homes like Squidward, SpongeBob, and definitely Patrick's home is, the less chances the slime will grow. I would argue that the chum bucket is as filthy, if not more filthy, than the Krusty Krab, and yet it isn't oozing this slime. As for Sandy's dome, it's practically the same as our home. It's not covered in water, so she would only have this slime on the outer side of the glass dome. If anything, Sandy's place would likely have mold problems rather than slime problems. And once you see it that way, it also kind of flips up our perspective on how health violation works in Bikini Bottom. You have to remember again, these slimes are not considered as dirty, at least by the customers of the Krusty Krab. If you're a regular there, you have to see these slimes every now and again, and yet they still come back. And that something is the answer to the question I told you to hold on to. Why doesn't anyone care? Because they know it's owned by crabs. The slime regrows in a day no matter what you do, which means the only thing on Earth that keeps it down is a constant cleaning process. Meanwhile, this is a man who let a grease trap sit unemptied for 50 years until a lawsuit forced his hand. A man who, in Greasy Buffoons, watched his customers get physically sick on pure grease and kept serving it because it sold. Cleaning the slime would cost money and produce nothing he can put a price tag on. So of course, it stays. The slime is just the visible edge of the same cheapness that runs the restaurant. But crabs being cheap is only half the explanation. If we're asking why a restaurant with oozing walls is still Bikini Bottom's #1 eatery, that other half was really about the town. I mean, look at what these customers will tolerate. In Nasty Patty, the Krusty Krab passes the inspection despite everything that happened in the episode. In Greasy Buffoons, crabs and plankton get into an arms race to sell the greasiest possible food. One of the menu items is literally pure grease on a plate, and the customers, they line up for it. They keep coming back as they get sicker, until one of the employees has to call the inspector himself because not one paying customer ever would. At this point, whatever the health code is down there, the Krusty Krab will clear it, which tells you the bar is clearly under the water. And so, I think in a town like that, walls that ooze green slime is the least you could worry about. And maybe that's where I'd leave it. A cheap boss, an oblivious town, a wall that won't stop weeping, except the biology has one more turn that's almost kind. Because in the real ocean, this slime isn't really a bad thing. The same algae that gunks up the glass is, in a healthy system, doing actual work. It feeds the grazers, and yes, the thing that controls green film algae in the real world is snails eating it off the grass, which is a little too on the nose given how Fungus Among Us ended, with Gary clearing the green by eating it. The ocean's cleanup crew is a snail either way. It cycles the nutrients, it puts oxygen back into the water. Out there, a green film on a surface is a sign that the water is alive. That something is growing because the conditions are right for growing. So Squidward was right, they always do that. He just never stopped to wonder why, which is kind of a running theme about this show. The most interesting stuff is almost always the part everyone walked right past. A throwaway line, a detail in the background, a whole idea left sitting on the table. And not to mention, last time, it was an entire episode that just did that. One episode where the show clearly built on top of something genuinely fascinating, and then somehow forgot to actually use it, which is probably why most of you forgot the episode existed at all. That one's right there if you missed it. I'll see you on the next dive.